Number 1 says multiply. A is 6 4/10 times 10 to the first. If we look here, we're multiplying, which means we're moving our decimal point to the right. Our exponent tells us how many. So since it's a 1, we're moving our decimal point one spot to the right. So our decimal point moves till after the 4. So now we have 64. The second one, again, we're multiplying, which means we move to the right 2 times. So 1, 2, our decimal point moves right here. Since we have this blank spot, we need to put a 0. So now our answer is 640. C says 6 4/10 times 10 to the third power. Again, we're multiplying, so we're moving our decimal point to the right 3 times since that's our exponent. 1, 2, 3. Our decimal point is right here, and we need to put zeros in our blank spots. So our answer is 6400, or 6,400. Number 2 says, where did you place the decimal point in your answer to problem 1C? How did you know to place it there? So again, we put our decimal point after we moved it. Since it was multiplication, we know that we move our decimal point to the right. We look at our exponent. Since it was 10 to the third, we move it to the right 3 times. So therefore, that's where we knew how to place our decimal point. Make sure you write that and explain exactly what you did to solve that problem. Number 3 says divide. So we have 11 8/10 divided by 10 to the first. Since it is division, we know we move our decimal point to the left. We look at our exponent, we move it 1 time. So our decimal point starts here. We move it to the left 1 time. It is now between the 1 and the 1. So 1 decimal point, 1/8, or 1 1800. Our next one, again, we're dividing, so we move our decimal point to the left 2 times. 1, 2, decimal point. So we have decimal point, 1, 1, 8. And we need to make sure we put our 0. So it's 118 thousandths. The last one is 11 8/10 divided by, meaning move our decimal point to the left 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Since we have a blank space, we need to put a 0. So our answer is 118 10,000ths. Number 4 says, where did you place the decimal point in your answer to problem 3B? How did you know to place it there? So again, 3B is 11 8/10 times 10 to the second. Oops, not times, divided by 10 to the second. So again, since we're dividing, we know we move our decimal point to the left, and we look at the exponent, and we know we move it to the left 2 times. So we know we need to move our decimal point 2 places to the left, which would put it right before the 1. So make sure you are able to explain how you knew which way to move the decimal point and how many places to move the decimal point in your answer. Number 5 says, convert between centimeters and meters to complete the what's my rule table. Then write a rule using the power of 10 in exponential notation. When looking at our table, we have 100 to 1. To get from 100 to 1, we divide by 100. To get from 150 to 1 5/10, again, we divide by 100. Our rule wants it in a power of 10. So 100 is the same thing as 10 to the second. So our rule is to divide by 10 to the second. 435, the decimal point is right after the 5, and we have to move it 2 spots to the left. So our answer would be 0 and 35 hundredths. For 2, our decimal point is right after the 2, after the ones place. We move it 2 spots to the left. We have to put a 0 in that blank spot. So it would be 0 and 2 hundredths. Going from the meters to the centimeters, it would be the opposite. So it would be times 10 to the second. So for 3 and 7/10, we would have to move the decimal to the right 2 spots. 0 goes in the blank, and it would be 370 centimeters equals 3 and 7/10 of a meter. Number 6 says Jillian is making curtains for her room. She has fabric for each curtain that is 2 3/10 of a meter in length. She folds the bottom of the fabric to make each curtain 12 centimeters shorter. How long is each curtain after Jillian has shortened them? So if you look at our information, we have 2 3/10 of a meter, and we're going to shorten each one or take away 12 centimeters. The only thing is we have meters and centimeters, and our units are different. From the previous page, we know that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. So therefore, we can either switch both of them to meters or switch both of them into centimeters. We can switch 2 3/10 of a meter to centimeters by timesing by 100, which means move the decimal point 2 spots. So now we have 230 centimeters minus 12 centimeters. 0 minus 2 we can't do, so we borrow. 10 minus 2 is 8. 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 minus 0 is 2. So our answer is they would be 218 centimeters. Number 7 says, use an estimate to place the decimal point in each product. So if I were to estimate A, I would round 48 4/10 to 50, and I would round 6 4/10 to 6. 5 times 6 is 30. Add that 0. My answer is going to be around 300. So if I look to make my answer around 300, I would have to put the decimal point right in between the 9 and the 7. For B, I have 1 87 hundredths times 35 9/10. So I would do 35 times 2 is my estimate, which is 70. So in order to make my answer around 70, I would have to put my decimal point in between the 7 and the 1. So it'll be 67 133 thousandths. Number 8 says, explain how you solved problem 7b. So again, I rounded, and I rounded 1 87 hundredths up to 2, and I rounded 35 9/10 to 35. Therefore, 35 times 2 is much easier to solve without the decimal points. Once I knew that that answer was 70, I put the decimal point where it made the most sense to make my answer closest to 70. For number 9, you have 13 5/10 multiplied by 6 4/10. So the first thing you do is you estimate. So I would do 13 5/10 to 10, 6 4/10 to 6. 6 times 10 is 60. So I know my answer should be around 60. Now I ignore the decimals and multiply like they weren't there. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 2. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So now I've done the 4, we're moving on to the 6. Since it's in the tens place, I have to put a 0. 6 times 5 is 30. carry the 3. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Add them together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 4 plus 0 is 4. 1 plus 5 is 6. 8 plus 0 is 8. So since my answer again is around 60, I know I have to put my decimal between the 6 and the 4 to make it as close as I can. So your answer is 86 and 40 hundredths. For number 10, you have 58 and 8 tenths times 87 and 7 tenths. First, you have to estimate, so I would round 58 and 8 tenths to 60 and 87 and 7 tenths up to 90. So right now I'm going to ignore the zeros. 9 times 6 is 54, and then add the 2 zeros back. So I know my answer is going to be around 5,400. Now to actually solve, you start with your ones. So 7 times 8 is 56. Carry the 5. 7 times 8, again, is 56. Plus 5 is 61. 5 times 7 is 35. Plus 6, 41. We're done with our ones place. Moving on to the tens place. Since it's the tens, we have to add a 0. 7 times 8, again, is 56. Carry the 5. 7 times 8 is 56. Plus 1, 61. Carry the 6. 7 times 5 is 35. Plus 6, 41. Done with the 7. Now moving on to the hundreds place. Since it's the hundreds place, we need to add 2 zeros. 8 times 8 is 64. Carry the 6. 8 times 8 is 64. Plus 6, 70. 8 times 5 is 40. Plus 7, 47. And now we add them all together. 0 plus 6 plus 0 is 6. 0 plus 6 plus 1 is 7. 4 plus 1 plus 1 is 6. 4 plus 1 is 5. 7 plus 4 is 11. 1 plus 4 is 5. And again, since our answer should be around 5,400, I know my decimal point has to go right between the 6 and the 7. So our answer is 5,156 and 76 hundredths. Number 11 says explain how you solved problem 9. So looking at problem 9 again, it is 13 and 5 tenths times 6 and 4 tenths. So just like we did, we rounded first. So first you have to estimate. I estimated 13 and 5 tenths to 10 and 6 and 4 tenths to 6. So once you figure that out, you know your answer is going to be around 60. Then you ignore the decimals. So you do 135 times 64. You find your answer. And then once you find your answer, you put the decimal point so it is closest to your estimate of 60. So just make sure you can explain how you knew where to put the decimal point using estimation. Number 12 says make an estimate, then divide as if the dividend were a whole number. Use your estimate to place the decimal point in your answer. So if I were going to estimate, I would round 7 and 46 hundredths up to 8, and I would leave my whole number as 2. 2 goes into 8 4 times, so I know my answer should be right around 4. Then it wants me to actually solve, and for now I'm just going to pretend the decimal point isn't there. 2 goes into 7 3 times, then we multiply. 3 times 2 is 6, subtract 1, bring down the 4. 2 goes into 14, 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. Subtract. Bring down the 6. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Since I have nothing else to bring down, we're done with our problem. However, we know our answer has to be around 4, and as of now, our answer is 373. So we have to put that decimal point where it belongs. In order to make it close to 4, I have to put it right between the 3 and the 7. So your answer is 3 73/100ths, which is very close to 4. Number 13 says write an equivalent problem that has a whole number divisor. Then solve the equivalent problem and complete the number sentence. So again, since we have decimal points in both, we can times them both by 10. When we times by 10, it means you move the decimal point over one spot. So now we have our answer, or our equivalent problem, of 81 divided by 8. So, to solve 81 divided by 8, 8 goes into 8 one time. Bring down the 1. 8 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract. We have nothing else to bring down, so our answer is 10, remainder 1. Number 14 says, a rectangular one-story house covers an area of 2,400 square feet. The ceilings are 8 feet high. What is the volume of the interior of the house? So again, when we find area, we have the area of the base times the height. So we know the area of the base is 2,400 square feet. We have to times that by the height, which is 8 feet, which is our number model. So to actually find the volume, we have to solve the problem. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 2 is 16 plus 3 is 19. So the area of the interior of the house is 19,200 feet cubed, since volume is always cubed. Number 15 says, the owners added a second floor to the house in the previous problem. The second floor is 60 feet long and 20 feet wide, with ceilings that are 10 feet tall. What is the volume of the interior of the second floor? So in this case, volume equals length times width times height. So our number model would be 60 times 20 times 10. So in order to find, we'll start with 60 times 20. Ignore the zeros. 6 times 2 is 12. Add those 2 zeros back. Then we have to do 12,000 times 10. When we times 10, we add another 0. So the volume of the second floor is 12,000 feet cubed. Number 16 wants to know what is the total volume of the interior of the house. So we know the first floor is 19,200 feet cubed plus the volume of the second floor, which is 12,000 feet cubed. So to find the volume of the whole house, we just need to add those two together. So to actually find the volume, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 2 plus 0 is 2, 9 plus 2 is 11, 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So the volume of the whole house is 31,200 feet cubed. Number 16 says Travis helps out at his family's tree farm. He took careful measurements of 8 dogwood trees and recorded the heights below. 12 and a half, 10 and a half, 10 and a half, 11 and 3/4, 9 and a half, 12 and 1/4, 11 and 1/2, and 9 and 3/4. So we have 9, 9 and a half, 10, 10 and a half, 11, 11 and a half, and 12. We need to make sure we're marking the X's where they belong. So 12 and a half is past this number line right here. 10 and a half right here. 10 and a half right here. 11 and 3/4, since here is 11 and a half. Here is 11 and 3/4. 9 and a half. 12 and 1/4 would be here. 11 and a half. And 9 and 3/4. It says make sure to add a title and a label. So my label, this is all feet, and the title is height of dogwood trees. The first question says, what is the most common height of dogwood trees at the farm? Since 10 and a half is seen more times than any of the other heights of trees, 10 and a half feet would be the one that is the most common. The next question says, what is the combined height to the 5 tallest trees? So the tallest tree is 12 and a half feet plus 12 and 1/4 feet plus 11 and 3/4 plus 11 and a half plus 10 and a half. So if we look, 1/2 and 1/2 is 1 whole. 1/4 plus 3/4 is 1 whole. And then I have 1/2 left over. So right there I got rid of most of my fractions. 12 plus 12 is 24. 11 plus 11 is 22. And then I have 10. So 22 plus 10 is 32. 32 plus 24 is 56. 56 plus 1 is 57, plus 1 is 58. And I have 1/2. So the answer is 58 and a half feet. And the last question, what is the difference between the tallest and the shortest tree? The tallest tree is 12 and a half minus the shortest tree, which is 9 and a half. 1/2 minus 1/2 is 0. 12 minus 9 is 3. So the difference between the tallest and the shortest tree is 3